Burnout isn't just about feeling tired. It's a sign that something in your work-life balance is misaligned. Today, what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to cover recognizing burnout, some of the signs, some of the things, some of the factors that actually you feel as you went through it, or Patty felt as she went through it. Breaking free from the hustle culture. That seems to be the thing. Everybody's fast-paced these days. How to break free from that. And then finally, building sustainable systems so that you can have more of a work-life balance in your life.
Yeah, it wasn't until the second time I was in Costa Rica, finding myself working again. The first time I was in Costa Rica in 2008, working, and it was a wedding, or 2009, and I still had to work. And then this time was 2023, and I was working again on a project, but then I got incredibly sick. So then I was laying there questioning my life with a fever, wondering what I was going on. And I realized that I was my own worst boss. And fixing that 2024 it's really changed everything.
Well, hello, we're back. We're grinding with data. Today I'm interviewing Patty on her experience with burnout. So, Patty, what were some of your early signs of burnout that you experienced?
For me personally, burnout was just kind of this don't give a crap feeling, right? I'm an emotional generator, and so my negative wave was just low and constant, and it was really deep. And I really think that sometimes when I was burnt out, I knew my professionalism was a little wonked. Um, it was you could feel it in my vibes. I could feel it in my responses to things. When I'm burnt out of doing something or feeling like it's useless or I'm useless or it's over, it it bleeds out into how I kind of am. I lose my dull. I become dull. Running your own business, you want to wake up and be excited about the day. And whenever I am on full throttle, then I don't want to get out of bed. I want to be a little bear and just and hide up. And then it takes longer to get started, and then but then I'm working, but then my type A comes in and I'm working later, and then it's just downward spiraling of doing it later, and then dragging my butt to get it done. And then it's like so
Ah,
yeah so it's been that's really those big things for me. It was you could see my sparkle was gone. um yeah.
so it seems like it's almost a sense of awareness that you need to be attuned to. Did you realize it was burnout at first, or did it take time to identify?
um at at first I didn't know it was burnout because I was doing it to myself, right? Like I know what burnout is when I worked at an ad agency for 60 hours a week, and quarterly having breakdowns. One time after being pulled over by a cop, and I was like, I checked my email at a intersection, and I had gotten this voice message from my mentor about my plan not being totally awesome, and so that's why I was crying, and I was going 10 miles over the speed limit, and he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, just go over to here and breathe it out for a little bit and then on your way. I'm like, okay. But every quarter, I would have some kind of little mini meltdown. And I never had those. I mean, you and I have now worked together full time since 2021. And I never had that kind of meltdown. There's been a couple times where I suddenly just went poof on you, and you're like, oh, great. Those were moments, but it wasn't regular. It wasn't like a regular cadence of, well, there's my quarterly breakdown, and you and I are doing our own thing, and we want to have our own shiny, and follow that shiny. But there's times, and you and I have talked about this before, this call, especially towards the end of the year when you know, the way we used to do things is we used to have these big grandiose goals of numbers and metrics and all these things because that's what you were told you had to do. You know, our bookkeeper's like, "Do you want me to put a budget together for the year?" Um, and it's like, why? We know exactly what we're going to spend every month. We just need to focus on what we're making. And uh, I am not ready prepared to project that yet, you know? But then I put that on me and we put that on ourselves and it comes around the holidays and it's like, oh, did I make my goal? And it's like, wait, we didn't set one for that damn reason. um, because we've done better pretty much every year than we did before. That's a win. That's
That's
good.
that
But
is good.
putting this some kind of number on, you know, or putting all this pressure of myself on it when because I'm the salesperson, I'm the mouth, I'm the one that is bringing it all in. That's a internal stress and pressure that I had to identify. But that's not burnout if it's handled well. But like I said, was I my own worst boss with not handling it as I would if I was a manager of a salesperson? I've been in that environment before. I've tangentially managed salespeople. Um, I know what it takes, and I wasn't doing that for myself. um, and so once I was able to identify it, especially with that big flu hit in Costa Rica last year, or 2 years ago, because now it's 2025. Um,
It's 1 year ago.
it's it's 1 year ago, but I'm counting 25 minus 23. It's two.
Okay.
So a little more than a year ago. I realized though that I was back to treating myself in the way that my old bosses had treated me.
Ah, that's interesting. So let me
Yeah.
ask you this.
Hmm.
We're both classically trained in business.
Hmm.
So we know the way Theory X business will run, and we've been in agencies and lived that agency life where we
Hmm.
had to do the party line and be that person that we are crafted in school. Do you think some of that may have manifested in that transition and understanding the burnout?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think you and I have had a lot of deconditioning to do.
Good word.
Right? We've learned that, and with the thanks of Pooja, when we used her coaching services for the first couple of years, the thing is that she taught us all of it, and we were like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then now it's suddenly like, yeah, we get it. Oh, yeah. Oh, it makes sense. It's finally clicking. Um, I'm, 3.5 generator. I had to test it all out and go, oh, she was right. You know? And so yeah, I think that culture, and I think all business owners do that, right? Like they were good at their job, but they were so burnt out because their bosses had these demands that they then go to work for themselves and think, well, I can be my own boss, but then they take those traits that they did not like and do it to themselves.
Mhm.
And what we're trying to, and so 2024 was really that proving ground for you and me to go, no, no, this doesn't have to be this way. This doesn't have to be like it always has. And we started that transition a little bit in 2023, but really it suddenly smacked us across the head. We had built all these frameworks to help simplify our lives that when we finally did them all in a certain order and clicked them all into place, we suddenly went, this has some legs. This has the ability to remove the hustle because we're focusing on the wildly important thing. Like
Mhm.
in all the books and all the things, like figure out what most wildly important thing is and do that. Well, we figured it out. We figured out how to do it. And that has left a weight off my shoulders. And now I can manage myself the way I need to be managed in that new business development, right? And how we're going to go about doing that tracking for not the sake of tracking, but for the sake of growth. Um, and that I think is helpful.
You know, you're right. You bring up a very good point when you talk about deconditioning. And I think that is part of it. It's not to say that every facet of classical business training is wrong, because there's some really great things there. But being able to understand what works with your framework is really, I think, what makes sense. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the permission structures that maybe you had to go through to identify that and be able to give yourself permission to break free from those constraints.
Mm,
Uh, it's a little bit of a
yeah.
curveball, but
Yeah.
I know I certainly had quite a few. It's like, no, the way you do it is this and this and this, and you follow it with this, and nope, there's no negotiation.
Hmm.
Obviously, we learned early on that that type of rigidity didn't really work within our clientele, our stakeholders, because they all we're dealing with a different type of organization now. A
Hmm.
lot of our clients are nonprofits; they're not the classically trained businesses.
Hmm.
So I think giving the permission structures might have been my breakaway, but I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on that.
Oh, so I had to give myself permission to first I had to learn, and this was something that was ingrained in my soul from my father, which he is slowly learning from me that it's not the case, which is good, but then it'll slip in and I'm like, no, it's not. It's not the construct. Is that the more you work, the more success you have because the idea, it's different. He's an electrician. The more work he does, the more he gets paid. But I have like 20 things that I could be doing. What's the one thing that pushes me forward? And it may not even be like the most energy pushing, or it doesn't even look like I'm doing anything. um, and what can I let go of the rest, right? Like the permission was that I could take it off my to-do list because I put it on there. I gave myself the deadline and screw it. Why do I even want to do this anymore? And knock it off, right?
Great.
Like his to-do list was based on jobs. And, when he was younger, he and I have had good talks about how he had to grow the business in times of feast and times of famine. And so we've gotten to a place where I've learned more about how he grew. But when I saw where he was when he was at the height of his busyness, it was work output and he was getting calls and calls and calls. But now I'm in the growth stage and I'm like, oh, well, I need to do this and we need to write a book and we're going to do this and we're going to do that and I got to do this and all these other things for the new business development. And then we win a client and I'm like, when am I going to have time to help? I've loaded up my list with all the other things. How can I do this? And it's like, wait, I should really be focusing on the things that help win the client and then the things that then I have this and nothing else because then like all the other rumblings are the things that in marketing you should do. And it's like, wait, should we? I think the only extraneous thing that we're doing now, and is it extraneous, it will be this podcast for the year. Because I hope for this podcast is a gift that keeps on giving to all the people who want to learn more about all the things about us. And then I can use it for like social stuff. But we let go of the book that we wanted to write, the
For
third
now.
one. Yeah, that we had an idea on, the fourth one that I had an idea on in total. For now, because no one's asked us to write it. We got to figure that out based on our strategy and stuff. But I think the biggest permission was to be able to let go um, of the things that don't matter and on the list. Because I remember like in the ad agency going to my boss and being like, here's all the things on my list I have to do, and here's how long I think it would take. It says it's about 80 hours, and you said you wanted all this done in a week. Something's got to give, or you have to help me. And then you kind of help me with a couple of them. And then I would work on the rest. But these were all mandated deadlines from clients and account people and all the things. But
Mhm.
what was I doing as the boss of myself? Loading up my list. giving myself busy work, giving myself things that I thought I should be doing based on the things. And then I'd be like, this list is really long. And I want to get it all done. And I'm like, wait, why? So like I use the Motion app. So if anybody ever goes online to book like a discovery call or something, or you've booked meetings with me, I use the Motion app, not just for booking meetings, but for also putting in my to-dos. But if my to-do is, and it's me saying to somebody, this is what I think I'm going to get done. Um, I've now been telling people, I'm telling myself I'm going to take twice as long to get anything done. Because if I was like, oh, I'd love to get this done, I'll get this done by the end of the week for you, I'm like, 2 weeks. Or if it's just my own personal thing and I'm like, yeah, I want to knock this out by the end of the month, I put the deadline in motion for the end of 2 months from now. And there's still a couple things that keep getting shoved back, but they're not important. It's okay. It's okay. How long has been reorganizing our Google Drive been on the list? It's not on the list anymore. I went, no.
That back on the list.
Mhm.
So I'm going to switch gears on you and ask, what beliefs or habits did you have to let go of to stop hustling and start working smarter?
I think it was that uh, when we were able to, like, we started using the CRM and I was actually starting to able to track my performance on my close rates and which strategic partners were actually bringing in valuable leads. And we started to say, how do we change our tack and change our approach so that we're starting to work on the most effective things? And that was about 2 years ago. And then last year we reevaluated and did it again. And this past year we reevaluated and we were doing it again. And it helped that we did the blueprint for growth again. We call it, for those that are watching, this blueprint for growth is just like a gift that keeps on giving, but we tend to we use it as a verb. We just blueprinted for growth that, we just, it's a bunch of exercises that help you narrow down what you should be focusing on for like the next 3 to 6 months that would really make your business be easier and smoother if you handled it, right? Like you're still running all your business, but saying that you're going to blueprint for growth is to figure out, well, what are those little things that you're fixing? So sorry, like we blueprint for growth all the time. But this past one, we focused on kind of that new business qualification process because we want to make sure that we're identifying clients' needs very clearly. And that we're removing kind of that phishing churn. And so we created those micrometrics that allow me to know what I need to keep thinking about or change my tack, but everything else can be let go, which is such a sense of relief because now we're measuring those things and we'll see in the next 3 to 6 months what that outcome becomes. I'm already seeing a huge change in the difference in the response rates and in how we're, converting people from consideration to, or awareness to consideration to evaluation, that kind of thing. Um, so I think that was helpful.
Absolutely. And on that note, let me just ask you this. How did you shift your mindset from doing it all to focusing on what truly matters?
Yeah, I think that came about in the summer because we decided that Mercury in retrograde, we would always block 2 hours extra to not do anything and just reflect and just be. And with that, that shrunk my time. And so I was like, oh no, all these things that were on my perfunctory to-do list of executing weekly and all the things that I must get done in a month and all the things that I wanted to do and add and be and how and blah, blah, blah. I knew I couldn't get them done. So I literally started halving my list. I would just cut half off. I'd be like, not important, not important, not urgent, not important, not important, not important, not important. I'd use the Eisenhower thing. I'd just be like, done, 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 out, out, out. I kept having it. Now, the only two to-do lists I have, because I used to probably have like five,
Only
um,
two.
Only two. One is like all my volunteer things because I only can spend an hour or so a week on the volunteer activities. And so because it's a little sporadic, I'm always like, what's next? What did I promise? So I have a list for that. And then the second one is that we've got one for our CEO day of like, these were the things that we needed to definitely talk about. But then everything else lives either in motion or in Pipedrive, and it comes up when it comes up, and there's no list. And sometimes in a day, there's no list for me to look at. I have just gotten rid of the list because it's what's wildly important, what will move the needle, what focuses on the R in romp of revenue. That's the
Mhm.
goal. So do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And occasionally, when we clear the list, it also frees us up to do other things. And I
Hmm.
find when you do clear some items off of our list or shared list, there's almost like a pack of other things waiting that jump in client needs or whatever.
Hmm.
And it's not a bad thing to go through and weed your list.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
absolutely, I've seen it from multiple perspectives, and I've seen it every time you do it be very effective.
Hmm.
And when she says, ladies and gentlemen, when Patty says that she goes through and deletes things, oh, it's brutal.
I'm
It's
infamous. I'm
brutal.
infamous for deleting things. Yes.
But there will always be one that yeah, she'll over prune and where did I get?
Yes,
Oh,
and I regret. Oh well. Not meant
it
to
worked.
be. It works out.
Okay, so what we want to talk about now is practical steps to reclaim your balance. So,
Hmm.
what was the first tangible change that you made to reclaim the balance in your business?
Um, I think the out of balance, the first tangible change was when we decided to get a project master because I was new business development, account manager, project managing, and the way I project manage was I was exhausting myself by trying to figure out all the scenarios or the milestone and the thing and then also like, oh, well this changed, redo all the dates. And I'm like, oh, I can't do this too. It's just a lot. And so we've had Kristen now, I don't know how long, 2022, 2021. I don't know how long we've had you, Kristen, but we love you. We love you. We call her our project master. I
And
haven't been a
Lee,
huge and Lee. Well, Lee is the project bulldog. She's the one that does a lot of the follow up and things. Um,
we've had
and
Kristen
that
long
was
now.
the first. Sorry,
How long have we had Kristen now?
I don't know. I
Doing
think 2022 maybe. Lee, I've had since forever, since even before Grounded with Data. I guess that was the first tangible thing was, you know, uh, hiring an executive assistant, or we had a virtual personal assistant for a long time, and then I read Gay Hendricks' Big Leap, and I learned how to delegate tasks to Erica. And then Erica went off on her thing, and Lee and I were having coffee one day, and I was like, "Wait, what are your skill sets again?" And you're looking for side work. And then she's been with me ever since. And so when we started Ground with Data, I was like, and Lee's coming because she just, she'll do all the things that we don't want to do within reason. And you're like, yes, it's like having that structure. And she doesn't work, a lot, but she saves our butt on like the drudgery stuff, and we let her do fun things. She does some questing. She does some good stuff. And Kristen will do questing too if she's got the availability. So we try to keep them engaged in some of the things that make them feel shiny. But because of the fact that they are handling those perfunctory things for us, they have the energy and capacity in which to do it well, to keep up with it, and to do it, right and correct. Whereas I was half-assing it, or it wasn't getting done, or I was getting frustrated by it, and it's just like, I can't do all of this, And so I think that learning how to delegate properly was that first tangible change.
All right, how do you create space for rest and to recharge without feeling guilty?
realizing who would I be feeling guilty for? I'm my own business owner. I have to do that in order to be way more successful. And also, you're a projector. You better rest more than me because you're like Lee in the fact that you can do a lot in a small amount of time because you're like basically bending time with doing things that make you feel shiny. Whereas I'm a generator, I have the constant energy to be able to do it, but that doesn't mean that generator doesn't need to take a pause and get a tune up, right? So when I take a break, I don't feel guilty because I'm making sure, like when I take a break, I know that you're breaking, which is incredibly important because I can't let you burn out. I have seen a burnt crispy jack. It's not good, you know.
It's a lot, but yeah, it's not good for anybody.
No, it takes a lot and it's not good. So while, I take a vacation, I know it's going to give you rest because you're not going to be feeling my generator energy and you might get to take a break too. So I definitely don't feel guilty. Now, for two people who are, if they're co-business owners or you're a business owner on your own and you're like, well, I feel guilty because I'm the breadwinner, or I feel guilty because they are working harder than me. You have to have a really firm understanding of your energy and your capacity, and to know that the break will save you. It's not a luxury, it's not a nice to have. It's incredibly important that you do that self care for yourself.
Your health, your family, your career, in that order.
Mm.
So I'm going to switch gears on you and go to another section. I wanted to talk
Mhm.
a little bit about the importance of boundaries and delegation. So what role does boundaries play in keeping burnout at bay?
For me, it's the self boundaries. I am constantly pushing on myself by putting things on my calendar and pushing myself to not appreciate those boundaries. We've gotten very good at client boundaries because we're resonating and working with clients that have their own boundaries, right? For the most part. This year, there's been a touch and go on a couple of them that it's like, I'm sorry, it's when? And you want to meet? We're going to get a crispy Jack and Patty if you want to meet at that time. We're going to be going, I think I was like, you're going to get some silliness if we meet at this time, you know? Um, so the rest of it's on me. It's how much do I pay attention to my giant 2 hour grace block period and my other breaks. Um, it's how do I have, if I'm my own boss, how do I stand up to myself and go, and no, I need
And
this break. So,
so let's talk a bit about delegation. Delegation can feel scary. What helped you to embrace it?
first, I think it was the Gay Hendricks Big Leap, understanding the zones of genius, excellence, competence, and incompetence, and where you should delegate and get help and assistance. That was the first step. And then I would say the E-Myth Revisited, where we started to understand how all the different roles in a company break down truly. And so where you would start actually filling the roles that you need to get off of your own plate so that you can think more strategically. And then finally, it was Rachel Rogers' We Should All Be Millionaires, where she went right back to that, concept of you need, like, it is perfectly okay to have people helping manage your stuff, right? Like you have to prioritize. Like Rachel Rogers, she has a personal assistant, an executive assistant, an office manager, a house manager, and a personal chef. You know, well, I don't have all of those things, but back in 2019, I did get a personal chef, which has saved John and me an immense amount of time and money, actually, because we don't have to get as much at Whole Foods. And one, we don't go to Whole Foods. We had the delivery service because every time I go to Whole Foods, I go, "Ooh, what's that?" And it goes in the cart. And so we don't save money when we go to Whole Foods, and so, or any grocery store, I'm always like, what's new? And so now we can maintain exactly what we order every week, at for Whole Foods, and we know exactly what our budget is for Chef Alex, and that's it. And so all of those things helped, uh, like delegating food, delegating, um, you know, filing our LLC info every year, delegating project management, delegating now, posting on the social media because I make it all, and then I run out of steam, and I'm like, and now I gotta schedule it. Oh man, I run out, and so figuring out where that where um where are you starting to feel crispy, and who could take over that feels refreshed, that could then get it done so much faster than you could because they're not crispy at that point. So you're paying them less if you're paying them by the hour, or they're not doing it that it takes them no time at all because they're not crispy. So
So, a few moments ago, you mentioned that you're a generator, and that even as a generator, you may have what feels like infinite power, but occasionally you need some downtime. So, I'd
mhm.
like to take a moment to talk about recharging and staying balanced. Um, what personal habits or routines help you to recharge and stay centered?
I at least the one walk a day with Eva, if not two, if I can. Um, Getting out into the nature. The more I learn about quantum physics, and the more I learn about the frequency of light and what colors the sun emits along the light spectrum throughout the whole day, and the fact that it's actually giving you information throughout the day. So you better go outside and get those nutrients from the sun in your eyeballs, so you can learn those lessons that you need from the sun. um, that's important. I don't get to do it very much in the winter because it's cold, but I just go out and lay outside, or I have my pool, and I'll go in for 5 minutes and just do something a little wildly different than me sitting in my office the entire day. That does not make for a happy Patty. So the recharge helps there. Staying centered every morning now, I do some kind of personal learning, something or other. So either it's meditations or a Mind Valley course, or reading a book, or watching other videos, or something, pulling cards, whatever it is, to recenter myself, to remind myself of who I am and what I'm trying to do. Because Patty is always still learning. So I feel like I got to be learning something every day. But the funny thing is that the thing I learned that morning, I'm applying that day with something to someone offering some advice. I'm like, well, that was applicable. Let me share that. So those are my personal things. And then also the new rule. What happened? It was 2024. The new rule was one thing a night, or one thing a week, one at nighttime, because I really like to be home and walk with Eva and have dinner with John and just have our night. So I try to only go out once a week. But that means I have to figure out what the most impactful thing is, right? The thing that will be either, will it fill my soul or my wallet if I go? Is it beneficial? And like, can I make connections that are deep personally or deep business wise? Like, I got to be very clear about where I'm going to be putting myself. Before the pandemic, and when I worked at the office, anywhere, I never came straight home. There was always an event, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I was either going to Tai Chi, Kung Fu, or a networking event, something. I was always going, and then I'd come home. I don't. How did I eat that late? I don't. I have the Aura ring because now I watch all that. I watch my health on everything. I can't eat late. My heart is a mess if I eat late. Like, what was I doing? Oh, it's ridiculous. So anyway,
Well, you've talked a lot about some very progressive things that you've done in your life to get to where you are now. I'd like to take a step back and ask, how do you know when you're slipping back into old patterns? And what do you do to self correct or course correct when you feel yourself in an old zone?
Yeah, I totally did that over Thanksgiving break, didn't I?
You did.
I did. I wanted to get the new website up. It was something that it was extraneous, but urgent and important for me to feel done. Because you know me, I've done the website like 4 times and I've never been satisfied with it or the content or anything. But once we did the celestially approved business blueprints for you and me, and then with Jaleesa at Integral Marketing Advertising's help, we did. We have a new brand guide and journey. And then through other things, we created like this kind of pillars thing. With all of that, the website just wrote itself. And I was like, now I got to get it up. I got, I got to get it up.
It's a beautiful website,
Thank you, thank you.
but that
But
website that was
yes, and so
classic
that was classic Patty. That was my mom and dad here, me working when I could have been doing other things, and so that was the classic Patty. Um, but I did that saying to myself, I'm not going to do a damn thing on on vacation or Christmas break or anything.
Patty.
Damn thing. Because there's nothing else to do. That's the great thing is now vacuum.
Vacuum.
But I will I need to be. As my bear car says, I need to learn just to be in the center of myself doing nothing. Thank you, spirit animals. It was a great day when I pulled those cards. But anyway. So yeah, that is slipping back. It's that doing that, right? It's not listening to my boundaries of those grace periods. It's thinking, oh, well, I have to check my emails, while I'm out of the office. I was putting my out of office on every time I was out of the office, and I'm like, nobody cares. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just not responding to people within, except like in 24, 48 hours. That's okay. They do that to me too. So like email shouldn't be immediate response. Texting is no longer an immediate response. Nothing warrants an immediate response unless you know the immediate response needs to come for some reason, but not really. It's just yeah.
I would say in person or a phone call might get a little bit of a bump up the list.
Yeah, I was, yeah, phone call. If somebody were to call me, I'd be like, that's weird. What do they need? But yeah, I prefer scheduling phone calls. Some people are always like, just call me when you're free. Like, you don't understand. I'm not technically free ever. I'm not.
Well, that's classic Patty. New
Well,
Patty is
now,
new.
but always free doesn't mean it's free for you. It's free for me.
True, true, true. It's free
Mhm.
is a relatively vague term.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for your candidness today and talking about burnout.
Mhm.
A couple of our takeaways is, you know, think about our earlier conversation. We talked about recognizing the signs of burnout early. And some of the signs that Patty mentioned were feeling apoplectic, feeling kind of tired, feeling like nothing mattered, a little bit of just feeling down all around and feeling achy and almost sick. So
Mhm.
those are kind of the signs that Patty mentioned, but there are other signs that other people might have. So take a minute and look up the signs if you even suspect you're going through burnout. And that way you can get ahead of it and don't hit the wall because the walls are hard, they're unforgiving. We talked a little bit about letting go of the hustle culture and embracing sustainable practices. And what that means is like the culture is that classic business training where always go, start early, end late, no boundaries really between your professional career and your personal life. And that you're always on 24/7. Should somebody call, a client needs something over a holiday. Patty and I were talking before we started recording this about the number of holidays that she and I have both worked. to get a project done or whatever throughout our careers. And one of our promises to each other is that we don't want to do that. Yeah, there might be a rare occasion where we would, but let that be the exception and not the rule. So letting go of the culture doesn't mean not to work hard. It just means to work differently and work on practices that get you from A to B, not worrying about other things. What are your most important things? It's almost like a triage situation without being in total chaos. It's what is the most next important thing for you to be doing, and then work on that. And we have a framework developed for that, and that's our blueprint for growth. And we live that, we walk that, we preach that. It is that good that we like it ourselves. And then set boundaries and prioritize what truly matters. You need your boundaries between your professional career and your home life, and make them clear and set not only set them, but politely communicate them when you're entering a project or something with a new client or a new business partner or a new stakeholder of some sort. You know, our office hours are X to Y. We are off on weekends. If you need me for something that is truly important, sure, call me, but call me within a little wider framework. It might be not 8 to 5, but maybe call me up to 7 or 8 o'clock at night if it's truly, truly important. But set those honest and clear barriers, and then prioritize what truly matters in your life. And so you have your health, your family, your career. If you follow that order, you will always be true to yourself and what matters most.
So remember, you don't need to do everything and you don't need to do it all at once. Take one step towards balance today, and it'll make a world of difference.
So if you're listening to this, take a moment to reflect on one task that you can delegate or one boundary that you can set this week, and see what you can do about implementing it. See how that works, and then maybe expand it until you actually can regain a comfortable space in your life. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.